Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our creepypasta reading session. It is Black Sunday once again, ladies and gentlemen, and I am here with the lovely Wanderer Fen to bring you some terrifying tales from beyond the abyss. And look at her eating the souls of the dead right up there.
Yes, they are.
Right, so what shall she be terrifying me with today? It appears to be a story called The Cinematographer. Are we serious? Okay.
This one isn't that bad.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's bite the bullet and read you this creepy tale. The paranormal was something that the three of us felt we were beyond. We all like to think of ourselves as educated, and when we got into arguments we felt near invincible. But when Martin insisted we fuck around with his fat older brother's laptop full of occult pictures and documents, and when he promised to involve some of his best weed, the three of us decided to meet up in John's basement. Hallowed smoking ground. It was our hallowed smoking ground.
After a couple bowls, the three of us stared into the glow of the HP screen, clicking through folders labeled demons, rituals life, ritual strength, hexes, phasing, lucid dreaming. Every folder was full of sketchy Polaroid pictures with twisted triangular faces and fingers like twigs, long pieces of text containing foreign languages and symbols, and intricate diagrams for sigils and sacrifices. It was some mind-bending stuff for stoned 17-year-olds. We found a project in a folder labeled Summoning. It contained tons of pictures and diagrams for calling things to this world. From hell, from other dimensions, from something that one image referred to as the else. And we picked one at random to mess around with and laugh through.
Lovely. The diagram called for little prep. We need only light some incense and say some incantations, all in some language that none of us had ever heard of. The entity that the diagram described lived in some place referred to as over the wall, with tons of red text littering the picture. It all warned of dealing with the entity, of its numerous powers, and it included short accounts of the lives it had ruined, including a pretty sick one about a woman whose guts it had removed and played with, and a few more involving figures without eyes found wandering the scene of the summoning. The thing was a curious being, but impatient. It liked stalking us humans, watching, observing, and before it grew more malicious, it started talking to us, experimenting on us, and driving us to do things for it, seeing what made us squeal or cry or bleed.
We got everything set up, and John volunteered to read off of the screen. Let me tell you, watching John fumble through that booga booga language was the highlight of the night. We laughed through the whole thing, John tripping over words and destroying some through chuckles. Even when Martin put his hands to settle us down, the snickers would... sound will not stop from playing through Creepiest. There we go. Even when Martin put up hands to settle us down, the snickers would get through and flare back into laughs. I decided to pull out my camera then. It had become tradition to film these basement sessions, and it seemed John was going for an Academy Award.
Right. We sort of gave up with the laptop after the camera came out. We were getting bored and John ran out of words to read. Eventually we all started passing the camera around and speaking into it directly. Kind of doing the That 70s Show round table thing. We'd say something intelligent, revelatory, or funny, and then pass the camera on. It was a way of documenting some indispensable hilarity to look back on the next day. The night passed quickly, and I remember turning on the TV, and at some point Martin and I picked up the laptop and walked back to his house so John could pass out on his couch. But events leaked in and out of memory after the night in question.
The next morning, I woke up to find my phone full of unread texts and missed calls, all from John. The gist of the message was, "Get your ass over here," and the voice delivering the voicemails wasn't that of the easy stoner I was used to dealing with. He spoke in unconnected, short clips, a lopsided train of thought. Found it downstairs for fun, supposed to, just thought I'd found it in the camera to see. You need to see, it's supposed to be fun, just over here, get over here, please. John sounded completely stern, almost lifeless. Something that set a million of little alarm bells off in my head. I went to find Martin, who had also gotten a phone full of messages, and we returned to John's house.
We found him upstairs in the TV room. He'd hooked up my camera left over from last night and was watching the new stuff we'd recorded, pausing and fast-forwarding, stopping every now and then to watch. Martin and I crept into the room and took places quietly on the couch. We didn't want to interrupt. The footage played on about as I'd remember it happening, and as I watched John on screen reciting the incantations, coming from his mouth they sounded entirely made up yet rhythmic, like poems from some other country. In the video we'd been cracking up, and the sound of choked laughs and giggles bounced around the room. But watching it again made me feel weird, like I was seeing and hearing something I shouldn't be, almost like snuff. I looked at Martin and then to John. John's stone face, Martin's mouth slightly agape, and the feeling like I was watching something forbidden made me feel like it had been a mistake to record last night.
I finally asked John what was up, why he called us, why he seemed so somber, and he gave a cold answer, a knowing answer. Keep watching. So we did. The night on the tape played out, filling in memory gaps here and there as it played. It ran to the point where we'd started talking into the camera and passing it around. John looked as though he'd snap on either of us at any moment, so I didn't dare ask what we were looking for. Finally, in the video, I passed off the camera and John hit pause.
See? Well? John alternated a stare almost accusingly between where Martin and I were watching and the TV screen itself. I glanced at Martin and he shook his head. On the screen we were all sitting together on John's couch, throwing up rock and roll devil horns with our hands, stoned out of our minds. I stared at the image for a few fruitless seconds, but then it hit me like a train. I saw what John had called us over to see. It made me feel nauseous. John said it before I could. Who the fuck's holding the camera? Okay, that was a good one. Damn, what rating is that?
It would be excellent if they had, pulled it on just a little more and then appears the demon like, haha, I have you now.
Yeah.
But it was good where it ended.
Okay, so I would say about 4 out of 5?
Sure.
Righto, 4 out of 5 it is. Now, the next story that we're going to read, because that one was pretty quick. What is the next story called?
The Girl in the Window.
Jesus Christ. Okay, if this ends up being a short one, we'll have to read one more, but let's
not. It doesn't look like it's too short.
Okay, well, let's see. The Girl in the Window. Lovely. I am so excited for this.
You sound ecstatic.
I am. Okay, The Girl in the Window. Let me link that. Okay, okie dokie. Let's go then. Girl in the Window. Here we go. Oh, almost forgot to change the title on the show itself. Girl. Yeah, my own images scare me. Okay, here we go. Thank you all for coming here today on such short notice. It's very kind of you, and I wish I had something better to say to all of you. Or at least something that won't sound so crazy and creepy. But it is what it is, and what it is something I have to do, even though it may not help me. It's what's right is all. It's the truth. So, here goes.
I'm not a hero, that's the thing of it. What I mean is, I'm not going to say that it wasn't really me that was there that night or anything, or that I was in cahoots with that sicko or anything like that. It's not some elaborate hoax. In fact, it's even more horrific than you know. Also, I'm not being modest. I promise the truth, and it's hard. It's hard to say this, but it's just got to come out the way that it is in my head. So I'm going to ask you for your patience, and hold your questions for the end.
Okay, as you all know, I drive a bus by that old house. It's part of my route, and as you've all heard, I saw something suspicious last night and decided to do my civic duty, and here we are. But there's a lot more to it than that, and what I saw was a hell of a lot more suspicious. But when I went into that house, civic duty was the furthest thing from my mind. You see, I had known something weird was going on there for months. What exactly, I do not know. What I mean is, I thought some completely different weirdness was going on, nothing like...
I think it was in early spring when I first saw the girl in the window. Cute as a button, young but not too young. I am not that flavor of pervert, and wearing nothing other than a white shift. I say I saw her, but I didn't. really. Not then. Back then, she was just kind of a hint of motion in the dark. A bit where the dark wasn't completely dark. Some motion that might have been the wind, or a bit of fog, or some papers blowing around. Indistinct, easy to ignore, or to rationalize. But I guess my mind kind of took hold of that hint and built on it. Maybe that caused what's happening next.
You see, what none of my fine customers will say now that I'm the darling of the press is that I'm a creeper. It's on record at my job. I've been reprimanded for staring too long or making flirty comments to the wrong people. I've never committed a crime, nor have I been actually punished. Never took it that far. But I have to say that because you need to understand that I don't date much. Ever. Really. I'm kind of a big guy, handsome enough in my own way, and I even have women friends that hang out with me. Everybody says I'm a nice guy, but if a bit quiet, and, it's true, I let people slide on bus fare and make up the difference myself sometimes. I come help friends in the middle of the night when they're in trouble, and I don't get stupid when I'm drunk. But I don't have girlfriends, because I guess I want certain things too much, and they sense it. They sense the desperation and the anger, I guess, and they stay away. So I suppose I think about women a lot, and I imagine things. I think maybe at first I thought I was just imagining the girl.
It was like that for a while. The bus would take me by that house at night, and I would stop at the stop. I would look around like I was looking for traffic or something on that lonely road at that empty intersection. I would look around real slow, slower than at any other intersection. What I was really doing was sneaking a glance at that house, at that one room at the end of the new extension, at that window. Because inside that window, I could see or imagine a little bit of motion, some darkness that wasn't completely dark, something that kind of resembled a girl dancing all slow and sexy. And when I did, I swear you that I could feel something, a connection, like I was feeding something, even if it was just my own imagination. And yet, each time, it seemed like I could see a little more.
Yeah, it was weird and unexplainable, to say the least. It wasn't like the bus was on time every time. How could she know just when to be in that window? And why would she be dancing in the dark? But every time it seemed like the room got a little brighter, a little more real. I guess I figured she had a room light on a dimmer switch or something, I don't know, but after a while I began to make out details. The girl, at first, of course, had long, jet black hair with long bangs. I couldn't see much of her face, maybe just an eye or the corner of her mouth. Just enough to know that when I looked at her, she looked right back at me and smiled. Just a little.
Yeah, I know how that sounds, but that is what I honestly believed back then. I never added up to how I could see a facial expression that far away in the dim. Never wanted to, I guess. I focused on other things. I could see her slim body, not ideal. I usually prefer women with more meat on their bones, with her hands up above her head, doing that slow shimmy in that white shift that covered everything and hinted at everything. I was sure she wasn't wearing nothing under that. I was sure she was teasing me. After all, what could I do? Pull the bus over and hop out, walk up to the door and ask for the date? I was totally safe to mess with, to make a fool out of.
After a while, I could make out details in the room. A dresser, a bed, a single light fixture on a beaded chain, old wood paneling on the walls, and after a while her room went from being a dark room in a dark house to being the only lit room in the dark house. She was keeping the light on for me, like it says in that radio commercial. I guess at that time of night it made sense for there never to be another car in the driveway or anything. No clue that maybe she lived with somebody or anything. My mind took that and ran with it. Maybe she danced in a bar somewhere. Maybe that was how she paid for that ramshackle place. Maybe she'd gotten tired of the usual customers and sworn off men, so she lived alone. Maybe that had gotten old and she had gotten lonely, so she was throwing a little bone to a lonely bus driver before she went to bed in that ramshackle house, all alone at night.
It went on for months. It became the damned highlight of my day. It was our little secret, she and me. No one else on the bus really noticed her, or even if they glanced over at the little house and saw her dancing there, they never said anything about it. Maybe gave a little jump and shiver and look away. No, her teasing was all for me. So I guess, in a way, it was inevitable.
One day I came driving along at the usual time, Maybe a little early. It was deep dark, not just due to the hour, but because of the storm that blew into town that night. The bus stop up the road had been drenched, buckets of water pouring down from the heavens, and no one had been there. The bus was empty. It was just me. So it was just me and her. I knew my bosses would believe me if I told them the storm was the reason I was late to my next stop. I knew the accident camera on the bus wasn't working. I knew that what I was about to do was stupid, incredibly stupid. I mean, what did I expect? Would she say about time and pull me into her bed? Would we make small talk and find out we had a lot in common? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. The angrier I got, the hornier I got. I stared through the rain at what was just a blurry splash of light on the corner due to the storm, and I pulled over.
I didn't even pull my coat over my head or nothing. I just walked towards the house. It was like my brain was full of some angry static. I swear to you, I have no idea what I would have done. As you know, I'm a big guy. Well, the doorbell didn't work, and knocking politely didn't work. I found myself thinking that just shouldering the old door open, and then something, I don't know what. I heard something.
Maybe it was just my imagination twisting the rain and the wind and the trash blowing through the yard into something I wanted to hear. But it was indistinct. But I swear to you, it sounded like a woman's voice. It sounded like the word help. That was all the excuse I needed. I don't know why I was surprised that the inside of the house was dark. It had been dark every time I'd seen it, but there was something about, I don't know, the quality of the darkness that seemed wrong somehow. Too old, too easy. I felt around and found the light switch. Clicked it on, nothing. The storm put the power out? I wasn't sure. There had been light from the one window seconds ago. I put my cell phone on flashlight mode and swept it around. It was weird. The place looked abandoned and not at the same time. A layer of dust on some things, but not everything. Furniture in the places you would expect furniture to be, but they looked somehow unused. Ignored. There was a faint trail in the dust on the floor, a trail leading to that room, her room, and I noticed there was no light coming from the cracks in her door. I mustered up a little gumption and coughed loudly. I figured she must have heard me coming through the front door like a freight train, and I was not sure why she had not said anything. A bunch of thoughts went through my head, each contradicting the other. I spoke up. "Miss, your power seems to be out. Do you need any help?" I sounded stupid and guilty and creepy, even to myself.
I felt a little like I was being drawn towards that bedroom on a string. My heart was pounding. About half of the water on my face was sweat. I didn't know whether to stomp towards the door so she would know I was coming, or to sneak up on it all careful-like. So I tried to do both at once. I must have sounded like a zombie shuffling all around. And so it took forever to reach that door. I took a hold of the knob and twisted. It was locked. I hesitated. I listened. I thought. Maybe she was hunkered down in the dark, scared to death of me. Some strange bus driver who had barged into her powerless house with her all alone and vulnerable in the dark. But maybe, just maybe, she needed my help, somehow. Could I come all this way and turn back now? I'd feel like a coward forever. And if she decided to call the cops on me, well, I'd already done more than enough to get me arrested.
I swear to you, I could feel it then, like a string attached to my navel, or maybe a straw. I was being pulled into that room. Something was being pulled out of me and into that room. I was feeding something, maybe her lust, maybe mine. I don't know, it took 3 tries, but I got that door open, and as it opened, I felt and heard something. A breath. An inhalation. One moment I was in utter darkness, except for the bluish-white glow of the cell phone in my front pocket. The next, I was surrounded by soft, warm, yellowish light. An old record player, just like I had imagined, was playing an old love song I couldn't quite place. The bed looked fluffy and soft and inviting, the dresser clean but old, with a warped and blurry mirror atop it, and scattered upon it was a tiny jewelry box and some makeup containers.
In the center of the room, as beautiful as the night itself, was the girl. Petite, slender, in nothing but a white shift, with her long black hair obscuring her face. Her arms were above her head as always, and she was dancing, twirling in that slow shimmy. She looked up at me, and she was beautiful, with pouting red lips and big, wide, black eyes. She looked at me and smiled, inviting.
I don't think what happened next was her fault entirely. I had my part in it. I could feel that connection between us stronger than ever, like a pipe feeding from her shift-covered belly button into mine. A flow. And I think it was the darkness in me that made it bad. I wanted her. Loved her a little. But the anger was there too. And I think her anger fed into it as well, and things got twisted. Things went to hell.
You see, I don't think they see the way we do. It's not that they have rods and cones in their eyes and nerves and all that junk. I think they see spirit or energy or something. I think, for a moment, she mistook me for the sicko, for the guy that had put her there so long ago. She saw the darkness in me that was like his, and she got mad. And all of that strength that I had been feeding her through that connection, through my lust, I think it was what made her strong enough to change.
The expression on her face became twisted. It became angry and lustful all at once. Her eye, the one that I could see, grew. It was eating her face. It was an angry dark pit that she was being sucked into, that I was being sucked into. It was a hungry, insatiable force, a scary, dark place. Bigger than the room or the house or maybe the whole damn planet. Her hair enveloped me, and the scariest part was that part of me wanted that hell. That was when the sicko showed up.
In an instant, she was gone. The room was plunged into darkness, except the bright white light of the sicko's mag light shining in my face. He didn't say a word, just cocked his gun, and that sound dropped the world into the pit of my stomach. I was going to get shot and die in this ramshackle house by the road, and no one was ever going to believe that I wasn't some sort of... I'm not afraid to tell you that I felt tears in my eyes, start in my eyes in that moment. I thought about rushing him, but I could not see anything other than the damned light in my eyes. And I knew the instant I started forward, he would fire. If only he would say something, give me a chance to explain. But how could I explain why I had come here in the middle of the night? Where was the girl? Who was she? I hesitated. She did not.
Through our connection, I felt something. Recognition. Hate. All of that. I felt something that I could no longer see rush away from me. And into him. He jerked the mag light swing away from me. I was still dazzled, blind, but I felt through her that his gun was no longer pointing my way. I trusted that feeling and I tackled him. I'm a big guy. You know the rest. Except you don't. I never wanted anything more in my life than to kill that man at that moment, but at the time I didn't understand why. I only knew that I was feeling her anger, her embarrassment, her violation, her rage, and something in me. I don't know. It opened up. The lust went away along with my rage, and I wanted to just comfort her, to absorb her sadness, to tell her that somehow it was all going to be all right, to help her, not to help myself to her. I stopped myself from killing him, and I stopped her from killing him.
It was then that my head had begun to clear, and I realized I had just beaten a man unconscious in what was probably his house in the middle of the night. Except he obviously didn't live here. I took his mag light and shined it around. The bedroom where I had seen the girl was old, dusty. The dresser and the bed were there, but they had long since deteriorated. The sheets were ratty, with holes everywhere. The mirror had shattered years before. The light fixture above me had no bulb, and hung at an angle with something like a rusty wire noose dangling from it. The window through which I had seen the girl for months had a thick, dusty blanket nailed across it. Everything in the room was covered in dust, except the throw rug at my feet. As you all know, beneath that throw rug was a trapdoor, leading into a soundproofed crawl space with 3 more girls, still alive, but starving and in danger of drowning from leaking, pooling water. I called 911 and thus became a hero.
What you don't know is that I saw the girl once more, twice if you count the photo online of her, the sicko's worst victim from years before, her bones dug up from beneath the crawl space. The bus wasn't involved this time. I shudder every time I reach that corner now, and I've been known to run that light if there aren't any cars coming. And there never are. No one after all that happened. I drove back there in my own car. I had to know how much had actually happened and how much was just my crazy. The whole house was dark at the time, and I did not dare go inside. Although the police tape and seesaw barriers and the press had long gone, but I strolled around to that bleak black window where I'd seen the girl, and I stared into that darkness. And she came to me.
She wasn't distinct this time. I guess she had used up most of the energy I had given her or something. But I could see her pale face, her splayed hands against the inside glass of that window, her one eye staring at me. I was drawn to her, and I stepped up to that window, tears streaming down. Glad I had saved those girls, but ashamed of why. She was still angry at me, and I could understand why. She had seen the darkness in my soul, had felt it. I came right up to the window, and I covered her hand with mine. If she had swallowed me into a hell in that moment, well, I reckon I would have deserved it. But she showed me a kindness. She whispered to me in that same indistinct but carrying voice I had heard before. Tell them the truth.
And so I have.
And so I have.
Is this enough for her? Is she going to still come to me on some lonely night? Maybe. I'm not really doing this to save myself. Now, you all think I'm plumb crazy. But maybe I am. Maybe now the press will stop calling me a hero, and all those girls who couldn't give me the time of day will stop buying me drinks at every bar in town. Maybe now I'll lose my job and not have to drive past that house anymore. I don't know. But telling the truth is the right thing to do, and now I've done it. So, thank you all very much. Wow, that was a very good one. And very chilling, too. I'm gonna vote for a rating on this one. I would say this is definitely worth a 4.5 out of 5.
Definitely so.
Shall we just do one more? Because I think we've still got a lot of time on cam. Yeah, one more would probably be decent if it's not too long one. Also, I'm playing some ambient horror music by Kevin MacLeod. I'm just gonna put the credits in there because... So, yeah, I'm playing this ambient horror music. It's royalty free, but God, it's fucking terrifying me. Shit. My hands are so sweaty that I'm like...
Alright, website, you have to work with me.
Okay.
If I'm to find something, you have to work with me. There we go.
Wait, what?
Trying to find another story to read.
Oh, okay, yep, sure. No, because I was thinking you have to work with me was the name of the story, and that fucking terrified me. I don't mind. That's, I'm gonna go to the rites and rituals page, because... Do I have something for you? This is a 16-minute reading time story. Oh, it's got such a low rating. Okay, fine. No, not interested. Ooh. Why I will never play the Ouija board game again. No, thank you. Fee. This one doesn't have too bad of a rating. It looks alright. Shall we give it a go?
Which one?
Fee. It's under rites and rituals. We haven't been there in a while.
You
so
should link it.
I have just linked it to you. Let's see what it's all about, this Fee.
My bowl of souls that I have right here. Is this the Fee? The souls that I have within?
No, but oh god, I terrified myself. Okay, in the video that I've got playing as our background, there's one scene where a girl just pops up. She's like a kind of like a corpse, and she just popped up on the screen when I had gone to switch it. So I nearly needed a change in clothing, but all good, all good now. I'm all good now. Oh god damn it! Why did I choose such a terrifying video for myself? Okay, let's do this. The Fee. It's not really helping that I'm putting on this really scary and really amazing ambient music by Kevin MacLeod, so let's go. The spacious room was nearly silent, save for the cuckoo clock ticking away above the fireplace. Both of them, among other little touch-ups, were meant to make the once foreboding home seem a little more inviting. But all the cheerful clock did with its incessant ticking was accentuate the quietness of the large Victorian home. A middle-aged woman named Christina slowly paced around the room's center as she waited for help, turning her attention to the clock every few minutes, but mostly focusing on the back of the room. She remembered being confident in the place's ability to attract tenants, at least from the exterior, with its elegant bay windows, castle-like tower, and intricate woodwork, but she felt the dreary, decrepit interior could use some livening up. Brown floral wallpaper taken down and replaced with white. Fireplace bricks painted back to their original deep red, splintering wooden cabinets restored. It worked at first. Potential tenants regularly came to look over at the 4 units she divided the place into, and for about 7 months all were occupied. 2.5 years ago, in late October, was when the complaints started. First, Mr. Wright called to say he regularly experienced cold drafts, even with all the windows closed and the heat on. Christina inspected the whole apartment for any openings the wind could have been coming through, but there were none. Wright moved... Don't laugh, it's more terrifying. Wright moved out
I can hear it.
A few weeks later, when she was able to see his breath while sitting next to a space heater, and all was normal again until the beginning of December, when Miss Mancini gave her a ring and demanded something be done about the upstairs tenants, saying all their stomping around at night was keeping her up, and they wouldn't answer their door when she tried talking to them herself. Christina had no idea how to respond to this, since Mancini lived right under Wright's then vacant apartment.
Even after the police failed to find anything strange, one of Christina's biggest fears was confirmed when all 3 remaining occupants said they felt uneasy after hearing someone might have broken in. She tried to calm her nerves by installing security cameras, but that only caused more confusion when they recorded empty halls when the tenants said they could hear someone running through them at night. One couple moved out soon after this, which put Christina on high alert, as she knew she'd probably lose all of them. Strange occurrences were explained somehow. It seemed hopeless, since neither the police or recordings of every possible entrance could reveal anything. Until Mrs. Mancini said that whatever was causing the commotion might not be of this world. Christina had never been a big believer of the supernatural, but at that point, anything was on the table, and looking into that possibility was what led her to where she was now. A happy little tune of the doorbell alerted Christina that help had arrived. After quick checking in a mirror to smooth the wrinkles in her grey blazer and make sure her blonde bob wasn't in too much disarray after dozing off on the couch, she opened the door. A cloud of perfume and cigarette smoke hit her like tear gas, and it took some blinking the water out of her eyes before she could focus on the pudgy old woman standing in front of her. "Are you Christina Scott?" the woman asked excitedly. All she could do was nod,
afraid to start coughing if she opened her mouth.
"Edith Grimsley, at your service. Great to finally meet you."
She shook Christina's hand before placing the handle of the heavy black velvet bag in it and walked into the apartment, scanning the room with her heavily made-up eyes. You can just put that bag wherever. It has all the stuff we... Lovely place you have here." You're so good at that voice, terrifyingly so. Christina managed to relax her scowl and give a nice-sounding thanks before resting the bag next to the glass coffee table and continuing to look over the stranger she'd picked out of the yellow pages. Edith's curled chestnut-brown hair was bunched up on top of her head, revealing some grey in the roots at the sides. Her teal bell-bottom jumpsuit crinkled in the middle as she sat down onto the plastic-covered couch while dropping some cigarette ashes into a tray she flipped open on the table.
"Well, we best not waste any time. On the phone you said you had a lot of strange things that have been happening in this house,"
Edith said, while Christina took a seat in the armchair across from her.
"Yes, I thought there was some regular explanation for it when it started. First, it would get cold for no reason, then footsteps where no one should be walking, then things ended up in places where you shouldn't put them. It all seemed point to a haunting." Edith ended the sentence before stuffing out her cigarette. "It sounded crazy to me when at first I thought about it, but after looking into this house's history, I don't think it can be anything else." "What exactly did you find out?" "The family that originally lived here from 1884 to 1897 was very into the spiritualist movement. They held seance in the house, and the youngest son disappeared in 1896. The rest of that said he just eloped with some woman, but that was never confirmed. I couldn't track down the owners after them, so I don't know how often or if even unexplained stuff like this happened before. But I know it's connected to what's happening now, and because one of my old tenants moved out and she told me she had a nightmare.
Edith had been listening silently the whole time and gestured for Christina to go on.
She had trouble talking about it. She was laying in bed, but instead of it being in her apartment, it was in the basement. She could see 5 people sitting around a table in the room, holding hands and talking about something too quietly for her to hear, while another person stood at the foot of the bed. They grabbed her ankle and it scared her so much she woke up, but even while she was awake and the dream faded away, it took a few extra seconds for the feeling of the hand's grip to fade with it. I know the original family she saw because there were 6 of them, and the basement is where they held their ritual. Is there a chance I could speak to her about it? Edith asked. Christina shrugged and answered. She moved after that. I don't know how to reach her. Well, this sounds like a much bigger job than I usually get. Most of the time, customers just want a heart-to-heart with a dead relative, but it must be really tough trying to rent out a haunted house. Edith laughed a little after saying this and lit up a fresh cigarette. Were you not told about all the ghouls before buying, or did hear it and didn't believe it? At first, I probably wouldn't believe it if I was. I'd ever been involved with anything supernatural involved, Christina answered, leaning her head to the side and putting a hand on her temple. How many renters do you have left? Ghost stories usually get around fast, so it's probably not easy convincing people to stay. Actually, this is the only apartment not occupied at the moment. I haven't told anyone the house's history, so they all have to tell others what are their own stories. People can just dismiss those, but real records of occult practices won't go overlooked. People here now won't stay long. Sooner or later, whatever's in this house scares everyone out, which is why I need your help. Edith took another puff of her cigarette. Well, these spirits do sound hostile, she said, before reaching into the bag she brought, pulling out what looked like a little blackboard and an oversized guitar pick with a hole in it. Let's try to be friendly. She unfolded the board and said like this. As she said this, revealing the alphabet, a few numbers, and the words yes and no in its top corner.
Ooh, it's an Ouija board. Do you need a break because you've been going on?
I'm good.
Okay.
So, what's this do? Christina asked. It's called a Ouija board. It's what we're going to use to contact who or what is haunting this house. We just put our hands on this part here, ask questions, and a spirit that wants to speak will spell out their answer.
They both put their fingertips on the smaller piece, and Edith asked the first question.
Is there anyone here who wants to speak to us?
A few seconds passed before they could both feel a dull vibration coming from the piece, and it slowly slid toward yes. A smile deepened the creases at the corners of Edith's mouth, and she continued.
Thank you for answering. Can you tell us your name?
The piece began to drift again, but this time it stopped on the no. Christina scowled at the board but kept silent, hoping Edith could coax some new information out of whatever they were speaking with.
That's all right. Are you the only one in this house?
The answer was spelled out Sometimes. Sometimes.
So there are others who come and go?
Yes.
Where do they go when they're not here?
The piece drifted back and forth for what felt like a minute before resting on a blank corner.
Are you still there? Edith asked after a few seconds, raising an eyebrow. Could I ask it a question next?
Christina whispered. The piece drifted toward the middle of the board again. Now's
your chance, Edith answered. Christina took a few seconds to contemplate her question before asking, why are you still here?
Cantgo was the answer. I can't go.
Why? She said next.
Y-O-U. You. Christina's hands drew back from the piece and clutched each other. Edith kept her hands on it, but had her eyes closed and it swirled over the letters.
I'm seeing something.
Edith's head began to sway back and forth as she said this. By the way, piano is playing. That's the background music I've got. It's fucking terrifying me.
I think it's a woman. It's...
She leaned forward and furrowed her brow as if squinting to see something far away, but with her eyes still closed.
She's getting clearer. She has dark hair and she's wearing a straw with red blotches. Blood? Christina asked, starting to shake. Flowers, and she's leaning over something.
Christina held a clenched fist to her mouth but kept still while Edith stared through her, into an abyss that no one else could see.
She's looking into a crystal ball.
Edith was snapped out of a vision by a loud crack to her right. Once she looked in that direction, Christina pointed to the small wooden piece on the floor and yelled, The
planchette just flew off the board!
Edith looked back at her red-faced, wide-eyed customer and after a moment said,
I guess we agitated one of them. Let's wait a while before we continue. You look shaken. I'm just new to all this. It can get frightening for customers. I'm sorry about that. Is there anything to make tea in the kitchen? I could whip up some to calm your nerves, Edith said, going back to a cheerful expression. Oh, I brought a few things up, just in case. I'll take care of it. You wait here, Christina said before getting up and heading through the
plastic sliding door into the kitchen. Edith got up and was walking over to get the planchette when a chilling wind blew across her face. She winced and tried to back away from the current, but it moved with her, and then wrapped around her neck. After slipping off her skin, the wind became concentrated at the window, fogging up the glass and causing the curtains to ripple.
What are you trying to say? She asked it.
The curtains continued to expand and fall, like a breathing chest while the cold air whirled around underneath. Once they blew far up enough to separate, she could see the words, "Get out," written on the glass before they fell slackly over it again.
I hope you like oolong.
Edith turned swiftly to see Christina putting a tray with 2 cups and a kettle on the table.
Something really doesn't want me here. I'll come back tomorrow,
Edith said while stepping toward a bag. Christina immediately looked and said, Don't tell me
you're losing your nerve now, or are you just trying to drag this out so you can charge me more, with an accusatory tone. Excuse me, I take this kind of activity very seriously. It's not like fixing a broken pipe. There's a conscious being floating around this house that doesn't like being bothered. It's a job that takes time, Edith answered, giving an angry glare. I've had this house for years, but it's mine now. I've got to make a living. It's already dead. What's it need with a house? It can go straight to hell for all I care. Now, if you won't help me show it who's in charge, I'll find someone who will. For someone whose job it is to talk to ghosts, I didn't think you'd be so afraid. Edith put her hand to her chest in shock
and then balled it into a fist.
You can't find anyone better at this than me,
she answered sternly.
All right, if you're so good, let's go down to the basement now and just confront it.
Edith's glowering expression turned into one of worry after hearing the challenge.
Hey, if you're scared, have some tea. It'll relax you,
Christina added, holding out a cup.
Oh, just forget the tea. Let's just get down there,
Edith said. Christina looked down at the teacup with a disappointed expression before placing it back on the tray. Edith would have thought it was very odd if she wasn't too busy fighting back fear to notice.
Follow me. The basement is this way.
Christina took a ring of keys out of her skirt pocket and walked toward a door next to the kitchen. Edith hesitantly followed her out into a dimly lit carpeted hallway with a narrow spiral staircase at one end of the hall and no wall at the other. Just an opening to a larger room with a concrete floor and wall. The open doorway on its left side showed a row of coin-operated washers and dryers, while Christina walked toward the large wooden door on the right. Once it was open, and she reached in to pull a dangling string, a dusty bulb flickered on and showed the large cluttered cages along the walls.
This is a storage room for tenants, But there's another down some stairs just through there. I don't allow anyone else down there, and it's where the original owners would have their ritual.
Christina said, pointing across the room to the rusted metal door with a large padlock.
How deep is this basement?
Edith asked, her tone now making it clear she was having second thoughts.
Since they were trying to contact the dead, they probably wanted to get close enough to be heard, Christina answered, while her heels clicked on the concrete as they walked.
The sound of the lock coming off and the rusted door swinging open echoed throughout the storage room, and down the ancient-looking stone staircase in front of them, which was dark enough to only show a few steps before Christina turned on the electric lantern sitting on the shelf, dug from the dry earth wall. She held it out above her head, and a harsh white light pierced down the black void. The dusty grey tunnel looked like the inside of a mummified throat.
There's a hook down there we can hang the lantern on. Watch your step.
Christina's words echoed down the tunnel before she started walking after them. Edith walked cautiously, pressing her hands to the wall since there was no railing to hold on and it would have been a long tumble down. She stopped for a moment to look back at the door above, but only saw black beyond the reach of the lantern's light. Either the bulbs above had been turned off, or she was too far down to see them, and after what felt like a few minutes, she could see Christina walk forward on level ground. The furnace's heat kept what should have been a chilling depth at a bearable temperature, and Edith felt a little comforted when Christina hung the lantern on the wire hook connected to the pipe covering the ceiling, illuminating most of the room.
Can you sense anything? Christina asked.
Edith looked around at the jagged rock walls and decrepit wooden furniture before noticing the dark stalls in the wall behind the furnace. Then she felt the cold breeze roll past the back of her neck.
There's something down here.
The wind blew her hair out in front of her when she turned back to the stairway.
I think it wants us to go back upstairs. If it doesn't want us down here, this must be where it's hiding. Why don't you check those little rooms back there? Christina said, sounding a little anxious and stepping towards her.
Edith hesitantly turned and started walking deeper into the room. Toward the stalls, her flared pant legs were being blown back and she could feel the cold brushing past her ankles as she kept going, like something was trying hard to deter her from going any further, but just didn't have enough strength in the physical world. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness and she could see into one of the stalls. It was empty, except for the large hole in the floor, which appeared to be filled with sand. The cold air blew against her hard, chilling her face enough to make her close her eyes, like it was trying with all its might to force her back. She racked her brain, trying to think of what it could mean. And what a shame, I actually know what it means already, but let's carry on with the tale, I won't spoil anything.
Well, do you see anything? Christina asked impatiently. Christina, do you remember when you told me you'd never gotten involved with this paranormal stuff before? That even the Ouija board was all new to you? There was a short pause before Christina answered. Yes, why? So, how do you know what a planchette is? There was another pause. A what? Christina answered. That little piece with a hole on it we were using on the board. After it supposedly flew off on its own, you called it a planchette. That just seems like an odd thing for someone like you to know. I guess it is.
Edith heard Christina's final response right behind her and whirled around just to see Christina trying to swing an old wooden chair leg into her head, causing it to hit her shoulder instead. Edith screamed as the force of the blow caused a stinging pain in her collarbone before shoving Christina back with both hands, causing her to stumble and fall. Edith tried running back to the stairs, but Christina grabbed her by the ankle, causing her to topple over as well. While Edith tried kicking her hand off, Christina managed to get back on her feet and started dragging Edith toward the dark stall with a sand-filled hole. After slamming her heel into the side of Christina's knee, the pain caused her to lose her grip. Edith got back up and tried to make a run for it again, but Christina was faster and locked her arms around her. When she could feel herself being dragged back again, Edith screamed, "What the hell are you doing?" while struggling.
It's...
Christina's sentence was cut off when a low rumble could be heard from the stall. Thin rays of red light shot up from the hole in the floor as the sand receded from whatever was rising out of it. Edith felt the cold air zip past her cheek like it had been scared away, and the room temperature immediately rose. It was like they'd been hit by an underground heat wave. It was hot enough to make their sight of the sand make their sight of the sand-filled hole wiggle as two gangly red arms shot out of it and grabbed the stone floor with thin clawed fingers, while the monstrosity continued dragging itself out of whatever that hole was leading to. What came out next were what looked like two large black hooks, followed by the crimson bald head they were attached to. A deep growl erupted from under the sand as what must have been its face was being lifted up. The growl was followed by Christina's pained scream after Edith swung a fist down into her side, clutching a switchblade she'd hidden in the pocket of a jumpsuit. Christina fell flat on her back and held the knife's handle while a blood stain appeared into the fabric of her blouse. As fast as she could, Edith turned away from the abomination hauling itself into their world, snatched the keys out of Christina's pocket, and started barreling toward the stairs once again, grabbing the lantern as she did so. But the wire it hung from was too strong. The lantern swung back, causing wild flashes in the room, and Edith had to continue up the stairs in the darkness, tripping so she had to clamber up on all fours to keep from falling. Christina's wailing and all other sounds was soon drowned out by a malevolent growl which began to grow louder behind her.
Christina let go of the handle and tried to keep still on the floor while the swinging lantern became still again. Every breath sent a new wave of agonizing pain through her torso, making her grit her teeth, fighting back sobs in an attempt to clear her mind. She knew losing her composure would just waste time. There wasn't much of it left, judging by how she could feel the bloodstain spreading. She also knew pulling out the knife would make her bleed even faster, and bending forward would make it cut more. So she rolled onto her side and pushed with one arm, trying to raise herself up without bending her torso. The sound of footsteps echoing down the stairs made her lose focus and fall down again. After a loud groan from the pain, she focused her attention on the steps. They sounded heavy and grew louder quicker, like whoever it was skipping many steps with each stride. Her eyes widened in fear as the black hoof clacked loudly on the bottom step.
The creature's upper body came through on a long serpentine torso before its other leg entered the room. It then stood over her, the red piece of flesh it held in its bony hand, dripping extra blood on Christina's skirt. She could feel its eyes on her, even with the white marble mask concealing its face. Her own eyes read over the strange symbols etched into it, mentally comparing it to the ancient languages she'd researched after first seeing them. Those thoughts immediately left her mind, and she felt the knife yanked out of her and looked down to see the red stain quickly growing. Her screams echoed through the room before the creature pressed its palm to the wound, and the pain suddenly stopped.
Christina was able to breathe again, unrestricted, and put her own hand to the hole in the blouse once the red hand was lifted. The fabric was mangled, but the skin underneath wasn't broken. Her attention then snapped to the creature crawling back towards the hole it come out of. "Wait!" Christina yelled, sitting up. "Tell me who you are. Are you Cyrus Watt, the youngest son of the Watt family who lived here first?"
Her questions were left unanswered as the creature slithered back into the loose sand, its scaly tail being the last thing she saw before it was completely gone. She got up and slowly walked over to look down at the spot, still wanting answers, but the heat radiating from it made her think it'd be best not to start poking around down there. Christina walked cautiously back up to the storage room, being careful not to let anyone see her in her bloody clothes. After closing off the stairs and storage room again, she saw the room to the apartment she'd been in with Edith was open just a crack. She quietly went in and put her hand to her mouth when she saw Edith's body lying in the broken glass of the coffee table. The open wound where her heart had been looked like it stopped bleeding, but the teacup she'd refused lay next to her, its toxic contents bleaching a spot on the rug. If you'd just taken that
drink, you could have avoided this fiasco, she said, while scowling down at her arms crossed.
When Christina finally pulled into the driveway of her own home, her arms were still sore from all the cleaning up, but it was good to know she wouldn't be getting any more complaints from the tenants now that the angry spirit who'd been causing all the trouble was satisfied. At least until the next offering was due. She had dinner as usual and decided to clean Edith's knife with the dishes. It made for an interesting memento. But something with her own blood just seemed a little too morbid. Once in her bedroom, she opened the chest at the foot of the bed and dropped the knife in, where it landed next to the shawl with the red flowers. Around them was strewn with other interesting keepsakes, more patterned shawls, turbans with big costume feathers, feathery earrings, striped stockings, rosaries, wooden bracelets, big hoop earrings. She didn't understand why spiritual women always had to dress so flamboyantly, but it made for a pretty box of memories. She locked the chest again, got into her bed, and switched off the lamp, trying to get some sleep, but couldn't help looking at the phone book on her nightstand. She turned the lamp back on and opened up the yellow pages. where her eyes closely scanned each page before landing on an ad for the shockingly accurate Lady Sphinx. A thin-lipped smile crossed her face as she picked up the phone and thought to herself, "Never said the offering couldn't come in advance." Ah, my god, I knew that that was the way the story would end. Fuck. I suspected it when the spirit said you. Oh god damn. That was a good one. What do you want? What would you rate it? What would you rate it?
That one was quite good.
I know. So.
I don't know. We've read others that I would. So probably 4, something like that.
I'd go with a 4 as well. Okay. That is it for our Black Sunday readings. Honestly, this reading was much more terrifying than last week's. The cinematographer, the girl in the window, and now Fee. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say, just don't fucking mess around with paranormal shit. It's kind of just bad. I know tomorrow I've got to stay at the office, and this is not exactly what I was hoping for. But anyway, we hope you enjoyed this reading. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall see you all on the next one.
Bye-bye.